Welcome into Dooley Field and Sanford Stadium here in Athens, Georgia, where we've got probably the biggest game of Tennessee's program here in at least the last 20-plus years, as the number 1 Volunteers in the college football playoff poll take on number 3, Georgia, here between the hedges in Sanford Stadium. This is the very first meeting of top 3 teams in Sanford Stadium in history here of Georgia football. So Tennessee looking to continue its winning ways, 8-0 on the year. Georgia also 8-0, defending national champions. And they did that a lot with their defense last year, a suffocating 10 points per game given up last season. 5 of those guys are gone to the NFL in the first round last season, so they replace a lot of guys, but they are stepping back up on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, Tennessee is rolling because of its offense and improved defense throughout the last couple games. Hendon Hooker is the reason behind that, accounting for 52 touchdowns here this season. Jalen Hyatt, he and Hendon Hooker have connected for 14 touchdowns through the air. That is a single-season program record set through just 8 games. Pretty incredible stuff here, breaking the 1997 mark of Marcus Nash, who had 13 between he and Peyton Manning. Of course, a season later, Tennessee will go on to win its first undisputed national championship in 1998. A lot of comparisons to that season here as we move along in games here this year for Tennessee. We look at back to the Florida game and the build-up behind that and how Tennessee hadn't beaten the Gators in 6 years. Then you go down to Baton Rouge and just beat up on a top 25 LSU team. And then you come back, Kentucky, just beat up on Kentucky, and it's just kind of been the story for Tennessee here this year. Of course, stepping up in the big moments. You can point to Alabama and breaking that losing streak there to the Crimson Tide. 15 years, Tennessee storms the field and lights up cigars. Neyland smells like a big tinder box there for quite a while in the October evening. So that was a lot of fun there to cover that game. Certainly excited to cover this game here in Athens, Georgia today, as the Volunteers are set to arrive here just in a couple minutes here. We'll be certain to get them coming into the stadium. A lot of the pregame buildup has kind of been about how Georgia's defense hasn't faced an up-tempo offense like Tennessee's here so far this year. But of course, I don't know that Tennessee has faced a defense as good as Georgia's here so far this year. You could point to Alabama being very comparable. I also don't think Tennessee's been in an environment quite like Sanford Stadium here so far this year. You look to the Pitt game, the second game of the year. As much as I love those fans up there, they didn't quite show out for that game. You go down to LSU, it's a noon kickoff. Those fans just were kind of just waking up, and a lot of them weren't even in the stadium before Tennessee had turned LSU over and put up 7 quick points on the board, and most of those fans were out of the stadium there in Death Valley before the start of the fourth quarter. So certainly expecting a sustained crowd here in Sanford Stadium this afternoon as number 1 Tennessee takes on number 3 Georgia. If you go by the AP poll, this is a top 2 matchup, 1 and 2. Tennessee being the number 2 team, tied with Ohio State. Georgia, the top-ranked team in the nation. Stetson Bennett is kind of the ringleader there on their offensive side of the ball. His favorite target is his tight end, Brock Bowers, who's had a fantastic early career. He's just a sophomore. He was a 2021 Freshman of the Year in the SEC. Certainly he and Darnell Washington are his 2 favorite targets. The tight end room very, very accomplished and very dangerous here for the Tennessee defense. How do you cover them? Not a lot of teams have figured that out yet, but Tim Banks loves to play aggressively, get his defensive line involved and collapse those pockets, make those quarterbacks uncomfortable, and just kind of plug and play those secondary guys as you have to. So a lot of things kind of moving along here for Tennessee as we get set for kickoff at 3:30. Again, the team going to be arriving here at Sanford Stadium here in just a couple minutes. We'll be sure to bring that to you and show you some images of that. The team arriving here, they stayed over just outside of Atlanta last night, and they'll be busing in here today for this top 2, top 3, depending who you ask, matchup. Certainly excited to bring you that here on WVLT at 3:30 as we kind of wrap things up here from Sanford Stadium in Athens. Game of the century, game of the millennium, whatever you want to call it. Certainly one of the biggest matchups here in Tennessee's last 20 to 25 years.